So we know that we're all born with intuition. That is inbuilt into our physicality, like our physiology and our souls. We all have this ability to receive and to have this information within our bodies. It's always available to us. But as we've already said, the way that we are brought up, the way that we are conditioned to live, makes us turn away from that information. But now we know we have access to it. One of the ways that can help us hone that skill and get better at it is understanding the ways in which we might discern or interpret the information. So everybody's getting their own set of information, as I say. So we have this information that comes from spirit, from our spirit team, so our angels, our guardian angels, and our spirit guides and our ancestors, which are specific to us and our own experience. Then we have information that comes from source, from universe, from God, which is messages for the collective as a whole. Okay, that's why sometimes people will get the same intuitive hit as somebody else. So I believe that knowledge and downloads come from God, and that's why quite often when you have an idea for a new thing that's going to be of service in the world, you find quite quickly that somebody else has already had that information and acted on it, or that someone else has have had it exactly the same time as you. So when universe, spirit, source, whatever, God, whatever you want to call it, when it, for want of a better word, decides that actually the world needs whatever it is, you might get the download for it to have that idea, that inspired action, so might someone else. Okay, so it's this collective downloads that we get. We also get collective downloads around the state of the world, things that need to change. That's why we have these movements of people that there'll be somebody somewhere that might get a stronger hit, or somebody who's more in tune, simply just more in tune to that energy, more understanding, more able to interpret that energy and that download, who leads it. But everybody who feels aligned to that will have had that same download on some level. And then, as I say, we have our own spirit team guidance, which is specific and unique to our own soul's experience. Okay, so we're all downloading this information, all have access to the information all the time, but we have different ways of interpreting it. And what we find is that usually you have one or two of the following abilities, if you like, that you are more attuned to than others. So I believe again that all of us have all of these clairs, but some of us will be able to, or have a preference for, really our physiology and our experience and our personal preference, our learning styles, for example, all lead us towards one or two of these clairs. So the different ways of knowing is clairsentience, which is just a feeling like within our bodies. Like you might be really good at feeling the tightness in your tummy or the butterflies in your tummy, for example. Claircognizance is just this knowing, just like I just know. Like quite often you'll know when someone's claircognizant because they will say, I just know. Don't ask me why, I just know. Okay. Clairvoyance is actually seeing information or images or visions, if you like, in dreams or in real time. And then we have clairaudience, which is this ability to hear information. So this doesn't necessarily mean it's a voice in someone's head. It might be that they are just able to intuit words or phrases, and it's more language based, or they might hear a song or work with songs and get information from songs. Okay, so we all have all of the clairs. It's just some of them will be stronger than others, and we have this personal preference towards which one or ones we want to use. Okay, so how do you know which one is your preference, if you like? So we're going to work out right now. So sit down if you're not already, get nice and comfy, make sure no one's going to come barging in through the door, there's no noise in the background as far as possible. And then sit in a really quiet place, quiet room, and just scan the area around you. And I want you to take in all the details and all the feelings of where you are. So we're just scanning the area, slow and steady, noticing the big picture, but noticing the details as well. Noticing how you feel when you scan each area of the room and how you feel as a whole. And then closing the eyes down if that feels good and comfortable for you. If not, we can just pinpoint a point on the floor. And just focus on the breath for a moment. So breathing deeply and slowly in through the nose and out through the mouth. And I want you to mentally review what you can about the room. What caught your attention when you scanned the room? Was it the sight of something that stood out? Was it the sound of something? What can you really remember? What can you really resonate with? Was it the feeling of something registering in your stomach or your heart? Was it a taste or a smell that suddenly appeared, or a strong thought about something that's just hit you out of the blue? So is it the sight? Can you picture that room in your mind? Can you hear the sounds? What's standing out to you? Is it the sight or is it the sounds? Is it a feeling within the body, like a physical feeling when you think about that room? Or is it something else? Is it a thought or feels more like a word or a phrase? And opening your eyes when you're ready, coming back into the room, having a stretch, having a yawn, deep breath, whatever you need. And over the next slides, hopefully with that information, knowing which stood out, what things and which feelings and which of your senses stood out to you most during that exercise, combined with this information I'm about to share with you now, will help you understand where your preference is. And it's not that we discount the other clairs, it's just that we are going to start with one and move forward with that and practice knowing or hearing or feeling or seeing. Okay, so claircognizance we're going to start with. So that means clear knowing. And this is when we have knowledge of people or events that we wouldn't normally have knowledge about. So spirit impresses us with truths that simply pop into our minds out of nowhere. Okay, so this is not information that is gained by assessing the facts. This is just actually, I am knowing that something's going to happen. So it's like a premonition, a forewarning of something that will happen in the future. And the problem with this one, and this is the one that I find is most common, I feel like this is most universal, but it's also the one that's most ignored because it requires tremendous faith. Because there's often no practical explanation for why we suddenly know, and our Western education systems ask us, and our way we work ask us, and the way that society just functions asks us for proof. Just knowing isn't good enough. So that's why we come to disown it. What I want you to do is have the knowing and then perhaps find some truth to back it up. But sometimes the facts is not going to be there. And you have to trust yourself. And that will mean making uncomfortable decisions. It will also mean that you have to learn how to discern between what is fear and what is your intuition, which we're going to go into later, because that's a big one. So quite often people, for example, I went on holiday to Thailand and I spent a lot of the first part of my holiday worrying that there might be a tsunami. So that is fear. That is not claircognizance. And I think claircognizance feels completely different to fear. So we're going to learn about that later on. But for now, let's just try and work out how our clairs are operating for us. So clairsentience, that is clear feeling. So this entails feeling our own, and this is key, and other people's or other persons or other spirits' emotions. or feeling another's physical pain. So again, this is another one that if you are empathic, if you are in this group, if most of us have this ability as well. We are clairsentient for the good and the bad. So sometimes we take on other people's emotions. Quite often, for me personally, because my stepchildren, their mother died at a young age, they have a lot of grief and a lot of anger that they process, and quite often I'm carrying that and I'm processing that for them. So I have to be really careful of trying to intuit, like, is this mine or is this theirs? And sometimes we don't know, but we just having this ability to say to ourselves, I ask Spirit to allow me to take only what's mine forward and leave the rest. That's all it needs. It's just that intention, just that asking. Okay, so clairsentience is about the gut feeling. Okay, so it can be positive, can be negative, and we might get chills. Or that's a big one for me, is that I know that I'm on the money when I'm doing a reading, for example, when I get a full body chill, or the hairs on my arms stand up, or the back of my arms in particular. Some people experience like a gut feeling, just like that butterflies in the tummy, but this is difficult. This is different to clair cognizance, because this is a physical, visceral feeling. Okay, so we can feel these emotions and feel the physical symptoms within our own bodies, rather than just having this knowing. Okay, so you might be tuning into the emotion or energy of somebody else, or a person or a spirit that's around you, and that can be how spirit is communicating through their own stuff into you to give you information that you might need to know for the future. Okay, but it's a difficult one, this one, because we have to discern what is truth and what is truly ours, and what is somebody else's that we're just kind of helping them process. So clairaudience, this would be amazing. I would love to have this ability. So this is clear hearing. So this is when we hear words, sounds, or music in our own mind's voice. So on rare occasions, spirit may be able to create an audible sound. Okay, but this is going to take a lot of focused energy. I'm not expecting any of us that do this course, unless you are highly skilled and already quite advanced, to be able to hear voices of spirit. Okay, but we can sort of tap into this, as I said before, by tapping into language and lyrics and letting that guide us. Sometimes you'll hear someone say something and you just know it's important. That is clairaudience. Sometimes you'll hear a lyric of a song and go, oh yeah, that was meant for me. Sometimes in meditation you might hear words that are spoken. Sometimes you might actually get words or phrases that pop into your head. That's clairaudience. Okay, rather than, I think most of us imagine the spirit medium having like a full-on conversation in their head, and sometimes they do, but quite often what they're actually getting instead is symbols and pictures and images that they are then interpreting. So quite often when we go and see a tarot reader, it's their interpretation, or a clair whatever they describe themselves, but they're describing what they're being shown or what they are just picking up on. It's not necessarily somebody in their head, or like they don't have a vision of somebody talking to them in front of them. It's not like they can see a ghost, for example. It's not like the film Ghost necessarily. For some people it might be, but it's more about their interpretation. That's why they get so many things wrong, and that's why it's best. You can go to them. I love going to them for more like entertainment and to give you your blind spots. But remember that is their interpretation, clouded by their own mission, their own life experience, their own traumas and everything. So your own voice and your interpretation of what you're seeing or hearing is the most important. Okay, so don't expect to get a full-on conversation in your head, but that doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to or you are not clairaudient. Okay, so if you find yourself more connected and more language based, it could be that is your strength. So our natural talents tend to lie in our auditory faculties when we're clairaudient. So that quite often clairaudient people are gifted musicians, speakers, writers, public speakers, singers. So if that is you, I would tap into that skill. So learning and looking into, or paying more attention even to the words people say, to the words that you hear in your own mind, to the words that stand out to you in a text, to the words that stand out to you in a lyric, the phrases, the quotes that come to mind when you are giving advice to someone, for example. That's clairaudience. That's your intuition speaking through in a way that you can understand. So if it's a quote that comes forward, just like, oh, that's my clairaudient. And I think the more we celebrate that within ourselves and don't just sort of get weirded out or disown it or deny it or just be like, oh, it's just I'm getting the need to tell you this. The more that we celebrate it, the stronger these skills become. It's all about self-esteem, remember. It's all about building your confidence. So clairvoyance. Okay, this is when visions, past, present, future, flash through your mind's eye or a third eye, much like a daydream. Okay, so you can also have this, like you can have it like images, as we said, or like a video, like a movie playing in your mind, but you can also get hits of images and symbols. That's your clairvoyance. And remember that for those of us that have that aren't neurotypical, we might find that it's difficult to kind of visualize things. So when I say you be able to see things in your mind, it doesn't mean necessarily it's like a video. It could just be a sense of something that's playing out in your mind's eye. Okay, so one of the clues that one of your stronger clairs is clairvoyance is if you are highly visual, you're better able to understand an idea when you've seen it written down, or sometimes you need to write it down. Sometimes you need an image. Sometimes you need, something on put on paper or on a computer screen or a canvas. And people that tend to have clairvoyance as their strongest clair tend to be artists, decorators, builders, photographers, etc., designers, for example. So if that's you, we're going to work with this, like looking into what images stand out to me in a room, what images stand out to me in a book or a place, or when I close my eyes to meditate, what images, symbols are coming through for me. Okay, and another way that we can kind of work out what our strongest clairs are by looking at how it ties into the chakras and looking at how your chakra system seems activated when you are meditating, for example, or when you feel like you've had some advice during a meditation. So sensation in the solar plexus and the heart area is tied to clairsentience. So remember that clairsentience is that feeling. So you might feel a tightening at the solar plexus before you're about to do something. You might feel like an opening or a sensation at the heart or a tingling at the heart. Or an unfolding. I quite often feel it as an unfolding and unlayering at the heart when we're having an experience with somebody or in a certain circumstance. The third eye is linked to clairvoyance. So sometimes we get sensation just above the eyebrows, right in the center of the forehead, just slightly up. And you can work with third eye meditations to balance and heal and open that chakra if you want to improve your clairvoyance. If you want to improve your clairaudience, or if you want to like tap into that, just notice what's happening around the throat chakra and the throat area, because the throat chakra is all around communication with others, with spirit, but also within ourselves. And the crown area is linked to claircognizance. So we're looking at each of these chakras, if you like. We can use specific meditations. We can use specific foods. Remember that just look at the color that's associated with that chakra. Eat more of that food to nurture that chakra, which will in turn nurture that associated clair.